Welcome to Old Kentucky Ridge.
Well, we're here with the 89 Ford. When we first turn the key, it fires right up, but it revs really high. I don't remember it really doing that in the past. Another thing is the motor seems to be running rough, like almost missing. That started the same time that a lot of white smoke started coming out of the tailpipe and getting a real strong gas odor in the cab. So after it runs for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, it'll actually stall out, and you have to, wait about 5 minutes, and then it'll fire back up and do all those things again. So after the research that I've done, the best I can tell is there's possibly an issue with the fuel injectors, maybe one or more stuck wide open. So I'm going to get access to the fuel rail there and check the fuel injectors, see if they're performing the way they're intended to. And if not, we'll go ahead and replace those and see if that resolves all of our issues. So fingers crossed. All right, well, I have everything unbolted. This gasket was absolutely horrible. I'll need to clean that up some more. I saw on some videos that they undid this bolt here, which could be problematic. I ended up unbolting this directly here. That may need a new gasket as well. Got all the vacuum lines unhooked. I have all the bolts out. There were 6 of them. You can see maybe that right there, that piece of gasket stayed on. Pretty gunky in here. Got some rust going on. This, I might just need to replace the whole thing. I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna call it a night. Go in and eat some dinner. Feel pretty happy with how far I got today. Never doing this before. I'll get this gasket off and go get my parts tomorrow and see if we can't figure out what's going on with these fuel injectors. How many of you all have done this job before? It was pretty fun. I have to say it brought back a lot of memories for me of my dad. I remember being a teenager and him working on his 302 and his Mustang, and I had, no clue about motors back then. I didn't have any interest. I'm sure some of you can relate. I wish now that I would have paid attention, but no better time than now to learn. Well, I got the intake manifold off last night. Wasn't too bad. Ended up cleaning the gasket off because it was broke in a couple places. So I closed off all the ports last night just so nothing got down in there. And then this morning I've been out here trying to get access to the fuel injectors. in order to get to to focus that bolt right there, I had to take this assembly off, this piece right here. There's a bolt right there, and then there was one right here, and then that one in there, which I'm still working on. Well, this part was really tight, and I was having to put a lot of pressure to try to get it off. It wasn't budging, so I opted to remove it on this side, and I was able to get that off. Alright, now we have a little bit better access. We can see the injectors. We'll see if we need to remove anything else to get to them. Alright, I was able to get the injectors pulled out. I just grabbed the rail and working it, and they popped out. I'm seeing quite a bit of rust looking color. Not looking too hot for any of them really. But we'll turn the ignition on and see what kind of flow we're getting. So we'll go over what we have here. I took a piece of hose. When I went to the store, I just had them fit a piece of hose that would go over top of this injector. So I cut a piece, probably 3 inches, and then get it down on the injector. And then a smaller hose I inserted into the larger hose, and I used this heat shrink wrap. I ended up getting a variety pack because I needed a bunch of different size, because especially for this little nozzle for the carb cleaner, I had to build it up. So it's really skinny. So I added like a small one, and then the next size up, and kept stepping it up. That way, and I think I'm there now, that way we can get a airtight gap in here to hold the pressure. We're going to get the pressure from the can. So it's pretty snug in there now. So I'll go ahead and do another heat shrink, and I'll use some black tape, electrical tape as well, just to make sure it's all sealed up. So here's the finished product. She's not the prettiest thing in the world, but she gets the job done. This is our testing harness. So I just built that thing up, started with the hose that would fit on the fuel injector. And then, of course, we needed our nozzle for the carb cleaner. And so we had to transition this in to fit in. And then ultimately I finished it off with a ton of black tape. If you didn't have it strong enough, you couldn't hold the pressure. But this is where we're at, and she's working, so we're gonna roll with it. Okay, we've modified our harness here a little bit. added a zip tie on the end. I couldn't find the other thing to tighten it down very good, but I have a bunch of zip ties, so give this a shot. I just tried it a second ago and it worked. I'll connect this one to the positive. First I'll get this into the can. Hopefully we'll be able to see this. If not, I'll try with better lighting tomorrow. Alright, I got the positive hooked up. I'm gonna go ahead and prime it. Squirt some in here, get it under pressure. Sprayed it. I'll touch the negative and it's squirting out. So I'm pretty happy with this injector here. I'll do it one more time. So it's under pressure. There, it's squirting pretty good. And we'll do this to the rest of them. After getting the intake manifold off, there's really only a couple things that'll have to be removed to get to the valve cover gasket and get the valve cover off. This right here was held on with just 2 bolts. And just sit it out of the way there. Alright, we got the valve cover off. You can see a pretty big break in the gasket there. This thing's just seeping and leaking all the way around, so I'm gonna go ahead and replace it since I was already in here messing with the fuel injectors. Show you a little bit of the tools that was needed for this job. For the valve cover, that took 11 millimeter. I was able to use a 11 millimeter socket with my 3/8 ratchet for 7 of them, and then ended up having to get a crow's foot 11 millimeter for the one in the back. It had, which I didn't know that it unscrewed. I couldn't see the thing, and this is the one that was on the very back, all the way up against, like, really close to the firewall. It was gunked up pretty good, and I didn't realize that it unscrewed, but I'm not sure that I could have actually got it unscrewed, because when you work it to the left, it ends up all the way up against the valve cover. So you can't keep turning it to the left. What you could do is, you know, while you're unscrewing the bolt, you know, hold this for it to come off. Regardless, it was a pain. I ended up using the crow's foot, like I said, 11 millimeter. So these are some of the tools that I've been using for the job. Ultimately, this started out, of course, to check the fuel injectors. And once I got that off, or once I got those tested, since I already had everything off, looked like it's leaking pretty good around the valve cover. So I just decided to go ahead and replace that gasket as well while I was in here. One thing I did is for each section that I worked on, I put those bolts in a separate baggie. That way when I'm on each section, you know, if I have extra bolts, I'm gonna know I forgot something. So that's just what kind of helped me stay organized. I also, you know, put duct tape around certain hoses that I unhooked, you know, and wrote on them what they go to. Some that had multiple, like I would put front, back, right or left, etc. All right, so I have the valve cover soaking in some cleaner. I'm going to go ahead and take this gasket off and get that cleaned up and everything. Get it all ready. I'm going to probably take the vacuum, I guess, to get some of this up in the back. I don't want anything to fall down in there. And we'll be back with the next step. All right, I got the valve cover gasket here, and we're ready to go ahead and put it on. Got everything cleaned up. All right, got the gasket on, and now we'll get this valve cover cleaned up and get her bolted back on there up to the torque spec. Got the valve cover gasket back on, torque down the spec. It's 14 pounds. Now I'll go ahead and get the intake manifold installed. So far so good. Nyla, you out here helping? Wanted to show the intake manifold while it's apart. For anyone who hasn't taken one of these apart, or maybe needing to do the job, show you where the bolts are. Came at them from underneath, but this is where it bolts together. I got underneath to get the one right there that's all the way in the back. All the rest of them I could reach from the side over here, but you can see it a lot easier from this perspective. Now we'll get the intake manifold gasket in place. I got that all cleaned up. Get the gasket ready. Need to put the rest of the bolts in the fuel rail there. Fuel injectors are in. Everything's ready to start getting this back together. All right, got the intake back in place. Now I just need to get it all bolted back together. I forgot about this piece a little bit ago, or no, this piece right here. I got that bolted back on, and then the fuel intake. So we'll get that bolted back up, connect all of our vacuum hoses, get our throttle body connected. Hopefully we're ready to fire this thing up soon. See if we did any good.